I've been catching up with the FTD Sessions series over the past few months, and I've just got the most recent one, which is the Girl Happy Sessions. So I'm completely up to date now. Got all, whatever it is, 13, 14 sets. It's quite unusual for me to be able to get in front of the camera and talk about a new release. So I'm going to do so while the CDs are still hot, because I've got to say this is, well, if not my favorite musically, it's certainly the one I've been listening to the most of all the Sessions CDs. I tend to listen to them a little bit at a time, maybe one song at a time, playing all the takes of one song, just basically at random. But with this one, I've been going through it disc by disc more than once. I've had quite a few listens to this already. So yeah, I want to talk about this and why, if you haven't already got it, you should get your hands in your pockets and buy it. This particular session set is unique among the session set for a couple of reasons, and that is on disc 1 you've got lacquers of unedited masters. That sounds interesting, doesn't it? Unedited masters. We'll come back to those in a moment. And you've also got a bunch of instrumental outtakes. Now the reason for the instrumental outtakes is because at the end of day 2 of recording, something happened in the studio which led to Elvis leaving early and then subsequently not recording with the band for the rest of the sessions. That's why on discs 2 and 3 you only get outtakes for a few songs. So you've got all the takes for about half a dozen songs. Anyway, we'll get into what happened in the studio that day in a moment. When I bought this album on LP back in the 80s, there were a couple of things in the music that kind of puzzled me, and through listening to this CD set I've finally managed to work out what was going on. Again, I'll get into that as well as we go through. So I'm going to select a few of the songs, basically focusing on these songs here, lacquers of the unedited masters, and talk about what they did to the masters. With this set, just like all the other ones, you get a nice booklet, a lot of interesting information in there. That's the original album cover, of course. The title song, Girl Happy, as most of you watching this will know, was actually recorded at a slower speed, and then they sped it up for record release. I don't know if this is correct, but I've got it in my head somewhere along the line, I must have read it somewhere, that RCA did that to make Elvis sound younger. I always thought that Wolf Call sounded the same, that sort of slightly sickly sweetness that you get to the tone of Elvis's voice in Girl Happy. I can hear it too in Wolf Call, and I think the drums, the snare in Wolf Call sounds a little bit like a toy drum. That suggests to me that the music of Wolf Call was sped up as well. But again, I'm not 100% sure if that's true for Wolf Call. There is a very famous precedent in rock music for speeding up a song, and if you're a big Beach Boys fan like me, you'll know what I'm talking about. At the end of their most famous album called Pet Sounds, there's a song called Caroline No, and it was written by Brian Wilson, the main guy in the Beach Boys, the main composer. But the Beach Boys' father, a guy called Murray Wilson, he was acting as their manager for the first few years, and he was also a composer himself. He didn't have Brian's genius, but he knew quite a bit about music. And it was Murray Wilson, the father, that suggested that they speed up the music of Caroline No. And it sounds great. And many years later, they actually released the original speed version, the version at its original speed, and that's also fabulous. It's I can't really choose which is better, the original speed or the faster version, and I feel that way with Girl Happy. I'm just kind of glad to have both versions, really. And Murray Wilson's a little bit like a Colonel Parker figure in the Beach Boys world. He's very much a figure of hate among Beach Boys fans, as Colonel Parker is amongst Elvis fans. I'm not a Parker hater myself, but anyway, maybe talk about that some other time. Speaking of the Beach Boys, there's actually a fascinating version of Fort Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce on this set. And I'm smiling because the idea of a fascinating version of Fort Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce seems a little bit alien to me, but there it is. It really is fascinating because there's an instrumental version of it on here that first of all runs for 2 minutes 54 seconds. So that tells you that something's very different there to the original. But also at the beginning and the end of the instrumental version, you get some like high falsetto backing vocals by the Jordanaires, and it sounds very much like Brian Wilson actually of the Beach Boys. So what's actually happening on the instrumental version then is you actually get one more bridge and verse chorus at the end of it. So that's one song that they edited quite severely. And if you look at the original songs on the Girl Happy album, there are no fewer than 8 songs that were under 2 minutes long. But in fact, many of those 8 should have been over 2 minutes long. The shortest song on the album is actually Starting Tonight, 1 minute 18 seconds long. But the unedited master on here is 2 minutes and 4 seconds. You actually get an instrumental outtake and a version with Elvis's vocals on. And the reason why it's longer is where the original fades out, you get a guitar solo in here, and then you get the last verse and chorus repeated. One of the songs I really like on the album is Wolf Call. And it was always a bit mysterious to me when I listened to it on LP as a kid, because right at the end of the song, during the fade out, there was like a backing vocal which I could hear, and it was like, and I thought, that's really strange. Why is Jailhouse Rock fading into to the end of Wolf Call? And when I listened to this CD set, I realized what it was. On the first disc, you've got an unedited master, Wolf Call, with the Jordanaires. First of all, it's a lot longer because you get an extra verse. Now, if you like the silly lyrics to Wolf Call, you're going to love the extra verse. It's got Jim Jamma Jelly, Tell Me You Won't Turn Away. But yeah, so the backing vocals, on this unedited master, you get a version with the Jordanaires going, ba-da-doo-up, ba-da-doo-up. And I thought, that's it. That's what I could hear on my LP all those years ago. Right at the end of my LP, you could hear that those backing vocals as the song was fading out. So that was one mystery solved. You also get an acetate of The Meanest Girl in Town, which runs for 20 seconds longer than the original version. And it's one of my favorite songs on the album, The Meanest Girl in Town. You also get quite a few outtakes on there, which is great for me because Boots Randolph played a solo in that song. And the thing you'll notice about Boots Randolph's solos is each one changed. Every time he did a new take, the solo would change. So you get a unique solo every time we get to that point of the song. And the reason why this particular version is so much longer is because it takes longer to fade out. That's the only difference, really. Another one of the short songs is I've Got to Find My Baby, which was 1:28 on the original album. The undubbed master runs for 2 minutes and 17. So you get an extra verse and chorus with that one as well. There is an interesting thing going on with the music there, though, because the band only required 2 takes, but the first one and the second one are in different keys. So the first one is in the key of C, and the second one is in the key of B flat, a whole tone lower. Now, B flat is not really a rock and roll key, so what's going on there? Did they slow down the music? There's all the controversy with this album of Girl Happy. They sped up the music, and maybe they did the same with Wolf Call. Did they slow down the music for I've Got to Find My Baby, or did the band just change key? I don't know. If anybody does, let me know. After all those songs that they shortened for release, there is actually one song which they did the opposite with, and they lengthened it. That was Do the Clam. So we do get a really interesting unedited version on here, which is only 2 minutes 43 seconds long, where the original was 3:17. So what they did to the unedited master back in the 60s was they did a couple of things. They lengthened the sax solo. They took the last 10 bars of the sax solo, bolted them onto the first 12 bars, and repeated it. So you've got a 22-bar sax solo there. And they also did an extended ending, so they must have repeated some part of the ending as well. So for example, towards the end there, Elvis sings Dig Right In and Do the Clam, and then the Jordanaires come in with Yeah, Yeah, Yeah. I think that's where they repeat the ending, which is not on here. And speaking of those backing vocals there, where the Jordanaires sing Yeah, 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 that always sounded strange to me as well at the end of the LP. It sounds like the beginning of the Yeah, Yeah, Yeah. It's just clipped off, just slightly. And I think what they've done is they've copied the earlier Yeah, Yeah, Yeah to the end of the song, and they haven't done a very good job of it, if that makes sense. Just a bad editing job. Finally, I just want to say a few things about what I think is one of the most incredible Elvis sessions of all time, unbelievable session, and that is the session for Do Not Disturb. A lot of fans will have memorized the fact that Elvis took 36 painful takes to get that right. Well, I'll say painful, but in fact, when you listen to the master, it doesn't sound as though anyone had any trouble with it at all. It's a really, really good performance. The vocal, it just kind of seems to float over the top of the instrumentation. The main instrument is the guitar. That's the dominant instrument, and the guitar is playing very much sort of downbeat stuff, fairly solid on the downbeat, whereas Elvis's vocal, the melody line, is often on the offbeat and sometimes between the beats. It's a beautiful vocal line. You know, it really sounds like someone trying to relax. So it's a great vocal, but listening to this session, it left me sort of open-mouthed when I was listening to it, because the first few takes happen, they come and they go, and I was listening thinking, where's Elvis? And like 4 takes go by, and I'm thinking, 4 takes, Elvis still hasn't come in, and I'm thinking, he doesn't know when to come in. What's going on? The poor guy, he doesn't know when to start singing. And then I think after take 5, he said, I want to hear the introduction again. And then it keeps going on like that. And finally, after take 10, Elvis finally take the phone off the hook. He starts singing it. And it's only when Bob Moore changes the bass, it's Bob Moore's bass line that's confusing him. So you probably remember in the introduction, Bob Moore on the bass just goes dum, 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 and then let's take the phone off the hook. But before that, before take 10, he was playing something else, something more syncopated. And it's confusing the hell out of Elvis. But once Bob Moore had changed the bass, Elvis was able to sort of tentatively get going. And then in the middle takes, they get somewhere into the middle of the song, and the song changes key, and then Elvis gets confused by the key change. And I think after about 24 takes, the engineer is really encouraging Elvis, saying, that sounds okay, Elvis. And Elvis says, I don't like okay, it's not good enough, you know. And he keeps going, and he keeps going, keeps going. And finally, after 36 takes, they were done. But the session itself wasn't done. They still had another couple of songs to do, but apparently Elvis left the studio. Or he stormed out of the studio, as people say in this situation. But anyway, I don't know if he stormed out or what, but it must have been an awful situation for him, because, you know, his professional pride must have been really hurt by that, because he was really struggling. And it's not the band are getting it right every time. It's purely Elvis who's not really sure what to do with this song. But like I said, the final version is fantastic. But he just couldn't do any more that day, so he went early, he left early. The band did a couple more instrumentals without Elvis, and then the next day he didn't go back, so he must have still been feeling pretty bad. And on that next day, the band recorded some more instrumentals, and in the end, Elvis recorded his vocals for, I think it's about 5 songs. I know I've been waffling on about this release for quite a long time now, but I really do like this, and I just want to say one more thing about these 5 songs at the end here, which seem to be a little bit puzzling. It's got 5 songs, and it tells you the instrumental take number, and it tells you the vocal take number. These are songs that Elvis didn't record with the band. And you might be wondering, why are they here? And I think that they are here because these are the only band plus Elvis versions that you get on the set, which are not the spiffy remastered new versions. You only get instrumental versions of these tracks, apart from up here. So that's why they've done it. And there are a couple of interesting versions here as well. Wolf Call is significantly longer, 142, about 15 seconds longer. So you do get a long fade out on Wolf Call. And it also does include the Jordanaires with the ba-da-doo-up vocals. And another one which is quite good is I've Got to Find My Baby, which is another 10 seconds or so on there. And that reminds me of one final thing that occurred to me while I was listening to this. I'm sorry, I will get off shortly. I can't believe I've been waffling on for so long. But that's how much I like this set. So I noticed that there's a bit of a Bo Diddley thing going on with this album. And I noticed it because of a couple of songs. So one is the extended ending to I've Got to Find My Baby. So it just keeps going and going and going. And Elvis is going, ba, 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 ha, 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 ha. which is the Bo Diddley beat, right? And starting tonight, that whole song has that rhythm, doesn't it? Dun, 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 dun. But also, when you listen to the unedited version of Do the Clam, towards the end of the song, Elvis, originally, he goes, "Ain't you glad that you found out?" And then the backing vocalist will respond, "Ain't you glad that you found out?" But on this version, you don't get the backing vocalist responding. You just get Elvis saying, "Ain't you glad that you found out?" And then you've got the rhythm going, dun, 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 dun. So it's there again, the Bo Diddley beat. So I noticed there's a little bit of a Bo Diddley thing going on with this album as well. Anyway, that's it. I'm really going to stop filming now because I've got a bit of a dry mouth. Yeah, all I can say is get this set. It's really, really good. You're going to love it. I certainly do. And I can't wait for the next sessions to come out. Anyway, that's it for this video. Any questions and comments, as ever, most welcome. Thanks for watching. Cheers.